When it comes to licensed video games, there are ones that make sense, like those based on action movies, cartoons, comics, and anime. But back in the 90s, there were games that were made just because something was popular, which is how you got Tim Allen fighting dinosaurs with a lightsaber chainsaw. The most interesting products of this time were the games based on food mascots. Back when games were cheaper to make, they would pump out these games just to advertise snacks. Do you know how many M&M's games there were?
What in the fuck?
If you guessed 8, you're wrong. It's 9. I find these games fascinating because they're just blatant advertisements for products like a cool, refreshing 7-Up. But because these games are based on commercials, they can do whatever they want with them. Of course, a lot of these games were just an already dog shit game that they just slapped a popular label on, like Hooters Road Trip, which is an accurate representation of driving home from Hooters.
Woo, yeah, let's go to another Hooters.
But there are some legit good food games out there like Chex Quest, a kid-friendly Doom clone that was packaged with boxes of Chex. Chex Quest was a genius idea because it essentially gave kids a Christian-friendly copy of Doom, and it was hugely successful, selling over 5 million copies and increasing sales of Chex by 295%. Although I think that was from kids buying Chex for the game. I don't think any kid was playing a Doom wad and saying, "Mom, we gotta buy some fucking Chex." Cool Spot is another one where it's a pretty good platformer starring the red dot from the 7-Up label. The graphics are really impressive for the time, doing a pseudo 3D look before Donkey Kong Country, and I can't help but love Cool Spot. Just goes to show that putting sunglasses on anything makes for a cool mascot. But there are 3 food games in particular that aren't just good for food games, but are legitimately fun games. And I know some other heinous, despicable, evil, irredeemable, eviler people have written these games off as jokes, but I think they're worthy of praise. Starting with McDonald's Treasure Island Adventure.
It's Treasure Land Adventure. Video's already fucked.
You wouldn't think that a McDonald's game for Genesis would actually be good, but this game has more soul than any modern AAA Sony game. It was developed by Treasure, a group of ex-Konami employees who just wanted to make great arcade-style games. They were given a contract with Sega when they first started out, and they were allowed to make Gunstar Heroes, the game they wanted to make, but only if they made a game for McDonald's. They didn't have to go this hard for a McDonald's game, but they did. And it's great. McDonald's Treasure Island Adventure is a platformer starring Mac from It's Always Sunny. Ronald's arsenal is death glitter and this magic handkerchief that can hang off of hooks. While the stages are a bit abstract, the color design is great. Everything complements Ronald's red and yellow really well. Also, this Ronald McDonald sprite is just so cute. Really contrasts with the more horrifying, realistic one. Feels like McDonald's could bring Ronald back if they made him a cute cartoon. And not the cartoon where he's some methed out Rugrats motherfucker. There's only 4 stages, but there's enough variety and gimmicks in those 4 stages to keep the game fun all the way through. The highlight is definitely stage 2 with the train level. Usually auto-scroll levels suck, but this one is a lot of fun. And they really push the whole circus clown aesthetic with this one. The game has a great feel to it, and it uses what little mechanics the handkerchief has to its fullest. There's just enough bottomless pits in the game where it never feels unfair. Plus, you have this balloon power-up that's basically a mulligan and can help you fly through entire areas, which is why it's the most expensive item. The game also has one of the best item unlock systems with this falling block game. Matching 3 gets you that item. My playthrough would not have been as long if it wasn't for this falling block game. Falling block games are great. The game is really easy. And not just because I didn't realize I was playing beginner mode until 3/4 into my playthrough. But not being overly hard is what makes it hold up so well compared to other Genesis games. It's an easy game. You can beat it in about 60 to 90 minutes on your first go, but it packs so much charm and variety into that 60 to 90 minutes. It's one of the few retro games that has a beginner setting, which actually makes me want to try it again on a harder difficulty. So many games back then had to be really hard to make them last longer, but the guys at Treasure knew how to make it just difficult enough to make you want to replay it. It's probably also because it's a fucking baby game. It's funny that there's no mention of burgers in this game. The only thing that comes close is the Hamburglar, who due to inflation has rebranded as burglar. It seems the gems were supposed to be burgers since they act as health and some enemies eat them. But I think it actually works in the game's favor because it feels less like a product and more like an actual game crafted with care. Because it was. It was definitely smart of Treasure to focus more on the magical clown aspects of Ronald McDonald instead of the childhood obesity. Treasure needed to make this game to prove their worth to make Gunstar Heroes, and it's funny to think that such a great game developer only happened because of a licensing deal with McDonald's and Sega. Just goes to show that if you do a good job, it's not selling out. PepsiMan was a mascot for, you guessed it, Tide, who had commercials that only aired in Japan. Despite the commercials being in English and taking place in America with American actors, the commercials never came to the States, which is a real shame because PepsiMan is like the perfect mascot. He's a superhero, he's a klutz, but he's also some mysterious liquid-like being with body horror elements. Honestly, why don't companies make more mascots that are both cool and goofy? I guess you can't do that anymore since Mac Tonight became racist. The special effects for PepsiMan were also impressive for the time, and that's because the CG was done by ILM. I guess Star Wars was just a stepping stone to PepsiMan. PepsiMan also had some variants, including Pepsi Woman, who makes me very, very comfortable. Thanks, Industrial Lights and Magic. The PepsiMan commercials were enough of a success that they made a video game for the PS1, which, even though it's in English and features American actors, still didn't come out in America. The game starts with this FMV of an average American who buys multiple Pepsis from a vending machine. Has he never been to a grocery store? We then see him go back to his house where he grabs 7 Pepsis and 3 full bags of chips to sit in his chair. The game is an auto runner, and you could say it's the predecessor to games like Temple Run or Subway Surfers. To think PepsiMan paved the way for avoiding copyright strikes on Family Guy clips.
Holy fuck, Stewie, I'm shitting.
The first mission takes place in San Francisco, and you gotta help this guy stock a Pepsi vending machine.
Oh, PepsiMan, thank God you're here. I got a flat tire. I gotta get to the Pepsi. If I don't restock the Pepsi vending machine, I'm gonna kill myself. And it'll be on you.
The game has a lot of charm with its mixture of 3D graphics and 2D sprites. Even though you're just auto-running through the stages, it gives you a lot of different set pieces to keep it interesting. I don't know what the vending machine guy was worried about, though. There's plenty of Pepsi just lying around. Wait a minute. This game is weird. So after the first level with restocking a vending machine, naturally, the next level is saving people from a burning building.
According to reports I have heard, they got the fire under control, but there are some people that couldn't escape fast enough and are trapped on the roof. They are extremely exhausted, and it doesn't seem likely that we can get first aid to them in time. Can't you give them something to help revive them, PepsiMan?
No. So PepsiMan won that action-packed trip to Detroit. You'll notice that every stage has its own remix of the PepsiMan theme, adding another layer to the weirdness. The next stage starts with meeting a military officer.
Oh, fuck. What the fuck? I'm not even supposed to be here. I hope I don't jack off.
This is where the game starts to get challenging, mostly from these bikers coming up from behind you. Man, the things PepsiMan does just to bring people Pepsi. We should be fortunate he's a benevolent being. The stage ends with this log segment that is kind of bullshit, since you can't tell where the logs will pop out until they do.
What?
Well, I like this game a lot, and I don't mind that it's so short. You can definitely tell that some sections just require memorization, so they could stretch out the playtime. This game was sold at a budget price, so it's understandable. Of course, that's not the case now. $100+ for 80 minutes of entertainment? Isn't the retro game market great? The final level has us trying to fix the supercomputer that runs all of Pepsi City. See, this is what I thought was going to happen after the soda tax. So remember when I said the last stage was kind of bullshit? Well, this one is really bullshit. This section with the conveyor belts is fun, but it's also difficult to gauge your speed. After that is a section with these pipes that is slightly easier, and this is where I learned how to short hop. After that is the second to last section with the skateboard, or cafeteria tray. This is what caused me the most trouble during my playthrough, since one hit and you're out. It took me 30 minutes to get through the first 3 stages, but 40 minutes just to beat this last part with all the retries. After that shit, the game's final section is a giant Pepsi can that chases PepsiMan while it spits out tiny Pepsis. It's like a metaphor for capitalism or something. The game ends with a final message from our diabetic weirdo.
Pepsi is... Excuse me.
Man, he is going to cut the toilet in half with that piss. We all love the Noid. The Noid is in our hearts. The Noid was this little fucker made to sell Domino's in the 80s. His whole shtick was that he would go around ruining people's pizzas, but not Domino's. It's a strange marketing strategy because it's basically saying, yeah, our pizza is shit, but the boxes are great. The charm of the Noid definitely comes from the fact that he was made by Will Vinton, the father of claymation. Vinton did tons of commercials in the 80s and 90s, and was responsible for mascots like the California Raisins and the M&Ms when he experimented with CG. This man made raisins popular. Vinton's style is definitely what made the Noid popular because the Noid is so fucking stupid. He's a deformed man who wears a cheap rabbit costume, and his one goal is to destroy pizzas. He doesn't even eat them. He's true chaotic evil. Of course, during the height of the Noid's popularity, he got an NES game in 1990. Yo! Noid? It's an action platformer starring the Noid, and funny enough, it's actually a reskin of a Capcom game called Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru. You see, Jakey, it's not that hard. However, the game we're talking about is actually the sequel, Yo Noid 2, which came out for the PS1 7 years later, long after the Noid had a commercial. Just kidding, this isn't a PlayStation game. You stupid gorilla. This game was actually made by Dustin Bragg and a small team for Waypoint's 2017 New Jam City Game Jam City Game. Jam. This game was completed in a month, and it's impressive what they did in that short amount of time. The first level is a shipyard where you learn the Noid's basic movements. This game is an incredibly tight 3D platformer, with wall jumping and ledge grabbing being quick and responsive. You're gonna die a lot, even in the first level. But luckily the game doesn't have a live system and starts you shortly where you fell, never breaking up the pace. Also, every time you die, the Noid will let out this banshee screech, which you think would be annoying, but I feel no remorse in killing this creature. After the first level, you get your yo-yo, and so starts our lighthearted adventure as the Noid. Well, that was a tonal shift. This is the Noid Void, your hub world. I gotta say, the lack of music and just throwing the Noid into this abstract wasteland was great comedic timing. Everyone loves throwing a weird gremlin into a strange world. A cosmic realm, lost somewhere between dreams and reality. Oh yeah, you can also dab. In the void, you meet these little topping people. They drop these strange and depressing messages, while the Noid reacts with a snarky pizza pun. I like the idea that the Noid thinks he's still in some lighthearted license game, oblivious to all the weird shit around him. The Noid is such a dick in this game, which makes his death screams all the more satisfying. The game has a good sense of humor, is what I'm trying to say with this paragraph. From the Noid Void, you have 3 levels you can go to in any order: Swing Factory, Planet, and Domino Dungeon. Swing Factory is your best first option because it eases you into the game's swing mechanic. I just realized why I like this game, because a lot of my favorite games have swinging. At first you think the swing is limited, but then you start to see how far it can reach, that you can hang on to it for as long as you want, and you can wall run while hanging. The game was already a solid platformer, but the swing mechanic adds a lot of depth, even if you can only use it on certain hooks. The Swing Factory even has a little swing yard you can practice in. Planet is the next level, and there's not much to say about it. You can go into a pizza crater to find keys. There's this weird tomato. You know, standard platforming stuff. The highlight of this level is when you latch onto a rocket and you land on the Noid. Ask your doctor today about Noid. Here you find some keys and use the same gravity mechanics as Mario Galaxy. Really fun stuff. I'd like to take the time to mention that the music and sound effects for this game kick ass. Pizza. There's also a little bit of world building, with this pizza tower in the void growing bigger after each level. Domino's Dungeon is the hardest of the 3 levels, as it pushes all the skills you've learned to the limit. It's here that I learned you could theoretically wall jump forever. It's a challenging but fun level, and to save you all some future frustration, there's an extra key in the first room. After beating all 3 levels, the Noid ascends the Tower of Pizza, ready to repent for his sins. The final level really amps up the creepiness. You go to these rooms full of TVs, and it's dark as shit, which is a nice little environmental puzzle. I got lost for a bit, but the environment gave me just enough hints that I was able to find my way up. I get to the top, and there are these dice and a big cracked screen. I thought it was a puzzle, so I start doing funny number combinations of 3. Then I thought it was supposed to be the Domino's logo, but that doesn't work since there's 3 dice. Right before I was about to give up and look at a guide, I just played around with the dice and realized I can swing them around. I accidentally threw one and broke the big TV, and it felt fucking amazing. When you figure out something just by playing around in a game, that accidental discovery is one of the best feelings. The final boss is Mike Hatsune, a reference to when Hatsune Miku was used to sell dominoes. Mike electrocutes the ground, and you have to learn the patterns while spinning and throwing dice at him. Getting shocked only stuns you, so you can't die in the level, but trying to spin the dice while avoiding the panels does provide a challenge. Not being able to die saves us from being frustrating, and potentially ruining the flow of a very tight experience. When you finally beat Mike Hatsune, this happens.
You're still too late, there is no escape. The first domino has fallen and your fate is now set in motion. Enjoy your lives while you can. Your replacement is out for delivery.
We're back. And then the credits roll. I'd say the ending is disappointing, but the fact that a Noid game could make me care about its ending at all is impressive. I mean, would it really be better if the Noid saved the day and the pizza realm or whatever the fuck was back to normal? This ending makes it open-ended, disturbing, and most importantly, humorous. The whole game kept me entertained with its little jokes sprinkled throughout, and none of them overstayed their welcome. Plus, how the game uses sound effects, dialogue, and weird imagery makes this 2-hour game funnier than all of Borderlands 3. After beating the game, you get New Game Plus with a new character, Mr. Green. He's green and has a much higher jump, just like that one guy, Shrek. This is actually a great way to keep replays fresh while using the same assets. They even gave him a unique death scream. He can jump significantly higher, and it makes you tackle the same levels differently. Apparently Mr. Green was a real character from the NES game and is a rival of the Noid. How much of a fucking loser are you to be this guy's rival? You base your personality on antagonizing a schizophrenic old man in pajamas with progeria? Just fucking shoot him. If you can't tell already, this game is great, and you can download it for free on the game's website or itch.io. Also, wishlist the dev's upcoming game, The Big Catch, on Steam, which looks fantastic. These 3 games are all short but very fun arcade experiences. They're meant to be played over and over again, with enough extra content to keep it interesting. Whether it's McDonald's Treasure Island Adventure trying to prove a dev team's worth, PepsiMan working with a small budget, or Noid 2 working under such a small time frame, you can feel that these games are true passion projects and not just ironic shovelware. With games being so expensive now, we may never get a food game like this again. At least one that's not just some shitty mobile game. Wait, Crash, what the fuck? I guess the takeaway from all these games is that even though they're advertisements, there are talented artists and programmers behind them. Some of the best creative minds of the 21st century started in advertising. And these characters' influence live on to this day. Perhaps these mascots remind us of a simpler and more innocent time. Or maybe people just want to fuck the green M&M. With the advent of the internet, advertisements feel like they try to overstimulate you instead of being a fun little short. I guess it shows that even though ads pay the bills for artists, you can still respect the craft that goes into them. Except the guy who made that Wendy's meme commercial. That guy can go fuck himself. More